Well, come on in. Welcome to the Chisago County Historical Society's new facility. I'm going to let Lynn explain the idea of this is a country store. This is a general store, and let her explain how that works.
We wanted to have something very interesting and very unusual so that people who came to town would be coming in and we can get them into the museum that way. With less and less people going into museums today, it's always more interesting if they can find like a general store setting that you don't see everywhere anymore.
People will bring in things for us. They may be old, but they don't really apply to Chisago County. Well, anything that doesn't necessarily apply to Chisago County, like the candy back here or some of these dishes and glassware, we have those items for sale. So people will come in here, and the proceeds of any of the sales for any of these items are used to defray the costs of running the museum.
And maybe you'd like to come into our museum?
I'd love to.
Wonderful. This area is on immigration. And as you can see here, we have maps that people can put down where their ancestors came from. We also have some of the artifacts that some of the earliest Swedish families brought along to America. And one of the oldest ones is from 1807. And an absolutely wonderful trunk was from K.V. Lance, and it's to Center City, and it's to Chicago, Chicago.
Now,
It got here anyway.
you also have to think about people coming from the old country, moving to the new land. They've never been here before. Everything they own comes over in a box like this. Now there are other exhibits behind you. This one is all children's items and things like that.
And all of these items were donated to our society. This is an extremely unusual sewing machine from 1840. And we found it in one of the back rooms here, and Ruth Korn, one of our volunteers, cleaned the entire thing up. An extremely unusual item. This is all for items that are for shaving. That's a personal collection.
What a job you guys did.
A lot of the reason for people originally coming to visit in Chisago and Lindstrom was because of the lakes. They would find their way up here, usually by train, and fishing and going to the various resorts. Over here is one of the books from the Doll's House, which was a very prominent resort and hotel in Chisago City, and there's some pictures of it but for instance, the names, the signatures in the book down here, this page happens to be from 1912.
One of the families that came from Sweden had 14 offspring.
We don't have a lot of our Indian items out right now, but these are Native American crafts and items.
And a wonderful collection of arrowheads.
Johnson, a sheriff over in Chisago County, he was off of another wing. I mean, all these wings that we could see, but now you understand what
This was kind of a special thing. We wanted to have a corner that represented the schools in Chisago County. And there were lots of one-room schools spread throughout the county. These are pictures for just some of them.
There were 61 one-room schools at one time in Chisago County before they were consolidated. Some of them were just literally miles from each other. But if you had a large family of 12 children, there's a schoolhouse full. So yeah, there were a lot of schools, and we've tried to recreate the look of a one-room school as much as we could. And This desk, for instance, was found in a tree after a tornado, and it's from the Long Lake School from Chisago County. This is the only desk that we have that we know the history of, and there's all kinds of things carved in the top of the desks.
As was very common back in the old schools.
This is another very unusual item, this bubbler fountain. It's so rare that any of them survived with that porcelain drinking cup on it. And this is the collection, Gene Amon's collection, his pharmaceutical collection.
He purchased many of the bottles and supplies in here. He purchased from other earlier pharmacies and druggists and put it together as a collection. He had asked, could I display this all as one complete collection? And we had said yes. We thought this would be a great addition to our collection. He very generously allowed us to come in and pick it up. And
very nice.
behind you is a collection of quilts. The early settlers couldn't afford to let any cloth or stuff like that go to waste. So if there was a shirt and it was running thin at the elbows, they'd cut it up and use pieces of it, and then they would create quilts.
All little tiny squares that they gathered. There's over 610 yo-yos. Somebody counted them. This one was made by the church ladies in Fish Lake in 1902. It's called a heritage quilt. And we have a couple other unusual quilts on the other side. This is a Civil War era log cabin quilt. Very good condition for its age, don't you think?
Yes.
Here's another one, and this one is all hand stitched, and in this area is there's a hand quilted, and there's a 4-leaf clover over here. Here's a flower. It's one of the best examples that I've ever seen of this type of quilt.
This is also interesting because the green here and the red here, these are all vegetable dyes that have created the color. So in some places you can see where the green is kind of faded to a blue, but it's because of the age of the quilt. I mean, 1860.
Yeah, I wouldn't look that good. These are collections. This one is on Singer sewing machines and all the countries that had the advertising. And this is shoe button hooks. And one of our other prized possessions is this tin kitchen or chuck wagon
Trucks
pantry.
with the big tires on, that's matched.
Very unusual piece, and we have never seen one that's in this good of condition before.
And where would this be used?
This would have been used like on it was self-contained. So like if they were working in the field or in a covered wagon, something like that, it's all self-contained. These are all hand carved folk art items. The wood carving items are really, really interesting. And most of them were hand carved by a gentleman named Leif Benson from Cost. He was very prolific. And this is a collection of hand carved tools from Peter. Is it Peter?
Noreen?
Noreen. No, John Noreen, sorry.
The interesting thing about some of the, particularly the Scandinavian early settlers, was they would carve wooden shoes. You always assume, I mean,
You assume they're from the Netherlands,
yes,
but they weren't only from there.
They used the wooden shoes when they would work out in the farm. I mean, in the barns and stuff like that, because you could take them, wash them off, dry them out, and use them again the next day. Whereas if you used actually leather boots or shoes,
You'd ruin them.
the leather would rot. So they would actually handmade wooden shoes to use for the barn chores.
And in the fields during wet seasons. This area is for the children. We want to get kids interested in history.
You don't need to run away.
You don't need to run away. One of our young guests drew on the blackboard, and here's a new display here. Today is history. This bin is a mystery. What can you find inside? There's also a map showing different countries and what you can find in those countries. And we'll have a lot more displays for children for Carl Oscar Days in July.
The idea of the children's corner is the parents may want to look at the exhibits, but the kids want to play over in the corner.
And they'll be learning something at the same time. This part of our collection is all local advertising memorabilia. For instance, this is a very unusual piece, the Hoagland Mercantile from Taylor's Falls. It's cardboard. How it survived this long in that good of condition is very unusual. But everything from bottles to Park Island Hotel memorabilia, plates, everything that you could possibly imagine. These are all items, yardsticks, everything even to a live ring-neck pheasant that you could send for and then butcher it. It's ready to cook. And I would keep even golf trophies. That was from Chisago City, from a golf course. So very, very unusual items, and to have them all in one place is very cool. This is another unusual piece. It would have been used to keep Jacob Peterson's day books in. It is literally one of a kind. But we have every community in the county covered. Franconia, Stark, Stacy. We may not have many things from some communities, but we have all of them covered, even Rush Point.
Now, this new building gives you a lot more opportunity to display things that were just sitting in boxes in the old place, right?
And this is Deb Scott, and she is demonstrating spinning.
Deb, tell me what it takes to spin.
Well, what I'm using today is a sheep wool that has been carded so that the fibers are pretty much going in the same direction. And on my wheel, I am threading through just a little bit that I had started before. Oops, it's a little bit tight tension here. Let's see if I can get that going better. Now I'm using a modern wheel, but there are several examples of nice Norwegian or Scandinavian wheels around us here. Now what I'm doing is I'm adding twist to these fibers so that they hold together. As I pedal, the wheel spins and the drive band on the wheel causes the flyer to turn. with my left hand, I'm holding the fibers so that the spin does not go past my fingers until I'm ready for it to. And with the right hand, I'm loosening up the fibers to get the amount of fiber that I want to make the width of yarn that I want. And then when I have the right amount of fiber, I just release that left thumb and forefinger a little bit and let the spin go into the fibers, and that turns it into yarn.
And the yarn's ready to go, right? Once it's...
I could use it just as it is. This is called a single. Most of the time I like to have a little bit stronger of a yarn. And so what I will do is after I'm done spinning, I'll put it on something like a lazy Kate like this. I'll have several full spools, and then I will spin those yarns back against themselves so they do what we call, let me do this, show you, do what we call plying, and that's just basically letting the yarn twist back against itself, and that gives us multiple strands and it makes a much stronger yarn.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
She just spun a yarn for us, didn't she?
That's right.
Yeah, spun a yarn. Good.
How good that is. And I'll let Neil tell you about our pretty parlor.
And any kind of a, no matter whether you lived in a log cabin or whether you lived in a nicer home, you always tried to have at least a parlor or something like that that you would show off to your friends. This is just a sampling of some of the items in our collection, and we wanted it to look a little bit like a formal parlor in a home.
And the chairs came from Neil's family.
They were a wedding gift to my grandmother.
So you've been in the area for generations?
I've lived in Wyoming my entire life.
And you've read all these books, I'm sure.
Yes.
Absolutely.
And the pictures are of Lindstrom Mayor Keith Carlson's great-grandparents, Charles and Johanna Victor. And they're actually going to be bringing some more pictures in because they like them here where the whole family can see them rather than in someone's closet.
Yeah. Nice.
Some of these items are from our collection. This chocolate set, for example, was owned by Ruth Edelstein, who was from North Branch. Her family lived there and she grew up there. She became an actress in Hollywood, and this is her chocolate set. So there's kind of interesting history in some of all of these artifacts.
Well, now I think it would be a good time to take a walk through our research center.
Need those pictures.
Books, information about the earliest settlers here in the community, people who've lived here. Someone might come in and say, my Uncle Alvin, I think, was buried in a cemetery here in Chisago County. We can help you find Uncle Alvin's place of burial. We also have copies of many family genealogies and things like that, and if people have them, we'd like to get a copy if we could. This particular room gets a lot of use because of all of the records in here.
And these records you're not going to find in some of them in other libraries. They're unique.
Many of these are unique to Chisago County. We've also encouraged some of the communities and townships, if they have records sitting in old cardboard boxes up in the attic and things like that, they should consider bringing them here because this building is climate controlled. We're able to take good care of them, and the records are also accessible at any time if someone would like to take and analyze them. This building itself was an early post office here in Lindstrom. There's a safe back here, but this building was used for that. It's gone through a number of different retail adaptations since then. And we're always looking for pictures of the community and things like that. let me show you a picture right here that I think is particularly interesting. This picture was taken from the hill over in Center City, looking to the south. You'll see the line of a bridge across there. That's the railroad line that used to connect from Wyoming all the way to Taylor's Falls. You'll notice that the railroad line goes right through the lake. Well, that's Highway 8 now. So all of this area here that's shown, that is a lake. Now they've hauled in tons and tons of dirt, and that's where the road now goes over to Taylor's Falls. But when I saw that picture, I thought that would be very interesting to anybody who travels Highway 8. That at one time that was merely a bridge, railroad bridge at that, connecting the communities on this side of the county.
Yeah.
Is there anything you'd like to know?
Well, now I see you have computers. What would you have in the digital world?
This is Bob Chudek. Bob is the tech guru for the Chisago County Historical Society. Bob is the one that can tell you about the computers and how they're utilized in research and things like that.
All right, well, when I joined the Chisago County Historical Society about 10 years ago, there was one computer and one laptop. We've probably expanded 6 times that number now. Last summer, when we moved from our previous location on North Olinda, 3rd Avenue, to downtown, we moved the entire office and research library over a weekend. We opened up on August 21st, if I'm remembering right, and my responsibility was to get the phone lines, get the computers, get everything set up so we could be in business the following week, and we pulled it off. I've got a clutter room back here. One of our computers that we can read microfilms. We've got a whole cabinet full of microfilms. We've got an index of all of the microfilms that are also on our website, so you can take a look at what we've got available here. But we pull out a microfilm, put it in this machine here. We can read it like a regular old microfilm system, but this is a digital system, so we can pull the pages up and we can actually print them out here. We can turn them into PDFs, we can turn them into files that can be searched, and we can email files to you too. So if you're looking for page 3 of 1946 newspaper that's in our library, we can email that to you. Or you can stop in and we can print the page out for you. But hidden back here is a interesting machine that I purchased via Craigslist. It's a document scanner that will take up to 36-inch wide documents. So I've scanned newspaper pages in and converted them into searchable documents as well. Our website is long in the tooth. It was actually up a single page when I first became involved with the Historical Society about 10-12 years ago, and I acquired the responsibility to update it. So we turned it into a multi-page. You can go on the website. You can see what we've got in inventory here for books, microfilms. People can look at indexes, and we get emails or calls monthly. I saw that my grandfather's name was on page 47 of this index, and so they've done the work of looking it up, and I can go to that book, email them a copy, or make a copy and mail it to them. As far as the website development, we're looking for a webmaster that's interested in advancing. With the introduction of tablets and phones, none of that was big time when I designed the website years ago, and it needs to be modernized for those types of devices. But it's functional as it is.
So people really need to search in person a lot. They can't just download a lot of information.
Correct. We don't have content online. We don't have that capability right now, but we're moving in that direction.
Yeah.
Say also that we have a lot of genealogists that do volunteer here, and we have also had quite a few genealogy classes. We can also introduce them to FamilySearch.org. We can introduce them to Ancestry and even Swedish or Norwegian or other digital records that are online. And we have all of that capability here.
And that's a good point. Anybody that has a laptop or tablet with Wi-Fi, bring it in. We've got free Wi-Fi access, and we can help you surf the web and look up documents that are available on the internet.
Great.
And we will be open, our hours are on the website. We'll be changing this summer. We hope to be open on Mondays too in the summer. You can check our website, chisagohistory.org, and find out when we are opened. And if you can't come those days, give us a call and we'll try to be open for you.
Thank you very much for your visit today, and we hope that you've seen some interesting things and that it's kind of generated an interest in history of Chisago County, and that you'll come back and visit us again because the displays will change. There'll be different things the next time you come, probably.